Ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, weavers of all races and subclasses, welcome to This Dungeon is Occupied. My name is Illadine, and together with Thorn and Bone Daddy as your hosts, we wish to help you as players and game masters, or as we say, story weavers, for the aspiring to the veteran with questions, ideas, and interviews for your next tabletop role-playing game experience. So grab a beverage, sit with us, and remember, steal everything and have fun. This episode, we have a special guest with over 20 years of D&D and Warhammer experience, a skilled terrain builder, painter, and sculptor with an ever-growing TikTok following. Please welcome more Drunkenblade. Thanks for coming on, boss.
Hey, thank you for having me, actually. It's quite enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've been watching a lot of your TikTok videos. Just recently, I saw your barn scratch build with the removable top with the interior. I'm amazed by your skill. I am terrible. My minis are painted with one solid color. That's all I've got for artistic.
Yep, me too. My minis are all painted with a solid color as well.
Mine are the color of plastic or metal. They don't get painted.
I have plenty of those.
So, as the first question, how did you get into the terrain building and painting? Was it because of D&D and Warhammer, or were you already?
I think for the most part, I started back in 78, 79 playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we pretty much, we used shoe boxes and books and stuff like that, and never really explored that. It wasn't until probably I started playing Warhammer and actually building terrain for a couple of stores that I was like, this is fun and enjoyable. And some of the local shops that had picked me up to do some of their terrain, I had already been doing some stuff already on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But back in 2002, I entered one of the like Golden Demon kind of things. I don't remember exactly what it was called then. I thought it was 2001, but I researched it was 2002. And I got an honorable mention for my terrain and stuff, and people were asking me about, how do I do it? Well, back then we were just using cork and some limited styrofoam and things like that. But I continued to do it, and I fell in love with just building terrain. Painting minis has never been my thing, but in building terrain, I think that I take also the theater of the mind, but I place it in front of you as well, and that's one of the things that my players really get into.
Well, that brings me to an interesting question. As far as between a map and theater of the mind, because you said you use kind of a hybrid. Can you tell the audience a little bit of how you do that hybrid? Because we usually have the argument of like, oh no, having a map is definitely better because I get to see where my pieces are, or theater of the mind because I don't really have to worry about it. What's your take on that?
Well, being an old school player and developing the theater of the mind, those types of things have been kind of ingrained in me for a long time, and telling stories and being able to weave those stories. And we had, again, back in the day, we just had some scratch paper, or if we were lucky enough to get some hex paper or something like that. But what I thought was imaginative and fun for the individuals, especially stepping into games like Mordheim and those smaller kind of games, building the terrain and actually really kind of getting into the movement and how you had line of sight. I have plenty of big large hex mats that I still use to this day for doing simple things. But when we come into something, I'm working on Mines of Phandelver right now, and all of the everything in it, basically. I'm going to recreate some of the caverns. I won't, because I already have cavern pieces. But for me, and the way I describe things and the way I have my characters look at things, I have to use a multitude of different media to do that. And having sometimes that single piece of terrain out on the board, and having a map in a dungeon sometimes really for my players anyway, and for myself, it really brings it more to life. And I see an interaction within the players also, that they really become more their character, and they kind of start to dive into, you know, I guess what some people will call the silly parts of being, you know, role playing in D&D, in which we actually assume that character for a moment. And that's the experience for 3 hours I kind of want to bring into my campaigns, is that I don't care what you come dressed up in, and how you're acting in there. It's a safe environment. It's an all-inclusive environment.
Sure.
And here's just another aspect of how I do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just recently saw also on your TikTok the Dreadnought gazebo, and that got some juices flowing for our current campaign right now, where we kind of bounce back and forth between the material plane and the Feywild, and so it might pop up.
Now, when I first started talking with you on TikTok, it was about a video that you had posted that talked about you had two groups come to you because they had lost their DM, because what I'm assuming was that they were going to stop supporting WotC because of the whole OGL thing. And now that it's been walked back, I mean, honestly, I agreed with you completely. I'm an old school player too, been playing since, you know, the 80s, early 90s. And the way that everything went with the OGL, it really, I don't know, it almost hurt my feelings, really. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, I grew up with this game. And I was wondering what you think now that they've walked it back, and what you're hearing from like your players and your community of how they feel about it. Are they still kind of hurt about it, or are they going to start supporting again?
Well, you know, I think I have a take from this that's a little different than the norm. And when I say the norm, I'm only meaning that in respect to what I have seen specifically online. When we talk about my players and the individuals that I am in most close contact with, those individuals, I would probably say a good 80% of them had no idea what was going on. And I think that's reflective within the community, because I read recently that it was, again, something like 80-something% of people, all the people who played Dungeons and Dragons, whether it be online or in person, had no idea what this was or what was going on. So the phenomena that occurred for me was that I respect the rights of individuals to do what they need to do, support what they need to support. I support third-party content. I always have. I love it. I love those different types of things. But playing D&D for so long, it hurt my feelings too. That both sides, both WotC, the Hasbro, kind of shamed themselves and did this to the community. And on the other side, again, some of the reactions we were getting online, and just a couple of the people that I know in person, I get what they're saying and I respect what they're saying, and it's not my position to say they're wrong or they're right. That's their position. My position on it was I was going to hold out and wait until everything really kind of went down. Just 2 weeks ago or so, when I guess we were maybe like in the midst of this thing, you had individuals online, you know, throwing their books away, and that stung. And, you know, I did not see, and I have never seen a video of this, but of individuals burning their books. But the fact of the matter is that you have the right to play any game you want. And in respect to the individual DMs that decided they were going to drop their groups, or basically they gave them an ultimatum: play Pathfinder, or I'm not going to DM for you anymore, and did not give them an alternative, because those 9 people, the 2 different groups, those 9 people didn't know anything about what was going on until all of a sudden their DM dropped them. And I thought that was doing more harm than good in the community.
Right.
Even if I decided myself to go to a different RPG, it is my responsibility, and it will always be my responsibility, whether being a GM or a DM, to make sure that I promote RPGs in general. I don't care what you play. I don't.
Yeah.
I prefer D&D, but I don't care what people play. But to just tell somebody and never have any contact with them after that, saying either you're going to play this or I'm not going to DM for you, that, and I wondered how it would echo throughout the community. And you saw on some of the posts, I did get a few trolls and things like that. But the fact of the matter is that once I explained the premise of what I was saying, I think most people kind of, I don't have a percentage or anything, but I think most people kind of said the same thing. It didn't seem fair. It just didn't sit well with some people. It didn't sit well with me.
And yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I do realize that as third party content creators, we tend to look at this stuff a little differently. We did have a long conversation about it when it was all going on. We were going to stick with 5e. We were going to play 5e. We just were not going to buy any more material. We weren't burning our books. That stuff costs money, man. That stuff's expensive. I am not burning nothing.
Yeah, I have a little bit of it.
Exactly. So, I don't know. It's just the way you talked about it, and you had such a heartfelt statement. It really caught my attention, and we were actually all together when I started talking to you about it, and it really meant a lot that somebody was in there, because 80% of the people did not know about this. And I agree with you. I think that if you're a GM, a story weaver, a DM, anything, if you give your players an ultimatum like that, and then you just cut off contact, man, I think he had more personal problems than anything else, because that's not right.
Right. And to my knowledge, I only actually know one of the DMs, and I have to say we don't really have the best friendship. But the fact of the matter is that he was trying to set up a third-party content kind of creation thing, and getting some of his personal dungeons and stuff like that printed, and I, I'm not going to go into that, but so I did understand. I just did. Yeah. I understand what he was saying. I just didn't understand the way he reacted. And you've seen now, we've gone back 2 weeks. Let's go back a week. It pulled back. You saw less and less content about it on all media, not media, but social media networks. You saw less content being pulled back. Then you saw the driving force, not too long ago about, oh, we won. I personally don't believe it's a win. I don't. I think it's a tempered solution to a much greater problem that, for the most part, I mean, they did it with Magic. I mean, they did basically the same idiotic move to Magic the Gathering, and that's my community as well. And I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. I've seen as high as 20,000 people had canceled their subscriptions to D&D Beyond. I don't know if that number is true or not. I just don't know. And whether or not they'll ever actually release the actual numbers, I don't know. But I do know that, or I've been told that an individual who decided they were going to cancel their subscription and then went back on to get their subscription back, didn't get the materials that they had originally purchased because they had to sign up for a new account. So that didn't just hurt WotC, that hurt them as well.
Yeah.
So if that's 20,000 people,
that's a lot.
Yeah, and that digital content, because I do most of mine digital. That digital content is almost just as expensive as buying the books, just a little cheaper, but I still drop a lot of money on them. So not receiving, if I were to cancel my subscription, not receiving my content back, I would also be very irritated. It's terrible.
Okay, now I do think that this needed to be talked about. I understand that this whole thing with the OGL and stuff is just like beating a dead horse, but on to lighter subjects, because again, we play a game and we have fun with this. This has been a lifelong thing for me. Let's get to some lighter questions. This is something we do ask all of our interviewees is, do you remember your first character?
My first character was nothing more than a human fighter, a male human fighter.
Yeah, same.
It was a character that was given. It was a character that was given to me There were, I believe, 3 of us that played. An old friend of mine, I think it was just the end of junior high school, I think about that time. In the summer, I was at traditional school, so we had 3 months off during the summertime. And I don't know really how it happened that we started playing. I just know that this individual had books. I had known, my little group since, we all grew up together, and we just started playing. I mean, we just came off of stuff like Star Wars was just released and things like that, and we always had, we were nerds. We were nerds when nerds weren't cool. And
Oh yeah.
we were openly admitting that we were probably the kids that sat at the different lunch table and things like that, and but that's who we are, and we bonded over those things, and we have those special moments. And playing D&D was just something that we could step out of our reality and just do something different. And yeah, that was my very first character, was just a random, I don't even remember. I think he just gave me the paper, to be honest with you. I don't even think I rolled for anything.
And since we talked about your first character you created, what's your favorite character you've created and used?
More Drunkenblade. More Drunkenblade came about in the mid 80s. Probably would have to be before 85, so 83, 84. And More Drunkenblade was nothing more than a dwarven fighter. And how that name came about, I have no idea, because the only 2 names I've really ever used is Swiftwater Jack, which was a dwarf, and More Drunkenblade. Swiftwater Jack has been long retired, but More Drunkenblade lived on, and he lived on into my Warhammer gaming experience as well as my general, and that's just kind of who I've been. I mean, he's been through probably every iteration of D&D that's been out there.
Did he traverse the different editions, or have you played more 5e, or did you bring him from, you said 83, 84, was that I think that was 2e, like AD&D time period?
Right. I guess it's going to be, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember ever really playing 4th edition, or I just don't.
Yeah, didn't miss much.
Neither did I. Super dream.
And some of that period of time also, I was overseas in the military and stuff like that, and it was just easier to continue on some characters and just play with the books that we had. And most of that was going to be AD&D and things like that. But 3.5 and then 5th edition. Let me describe myself as this: as a DM, and as a player. Well, mostly as a DM. I played D&D. I call myself 5th edition modified. And the reason I say that is because I take iterations from my first experience from D&D into my 5th E, and utilize those things, because if they make sense to us within a campaign or within a setting, and we can all agree at the table if these things make sense, let's just do it. Some of the restrictions, that people, say that D&D has or has not, I don't buy into those restrictions. It's a fantasy universe created by us, generated by us. These are not set in stone rules. These are a set of rules that are highly modifiable. And there's sometimes that, there's stuff that I do have to look up to maybe make it make sense, THACO things and different. I have modules dating back so long ago that I have to go in and see what the current kind of iteration of a monster or something like that is. But for the most part, if it makes sense in our universe, let's just do it.
Oh yeah.
I'm currently in Faerun. I love Faerun. It's been there forever. I love it. But that we are in Forgotten Realms right now, or in that kind of genre.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I agree. We do a lot of the same things. If it makes sense, we tend to make it rules. We make our own way through that kind of stuff. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on? Do you have a favorite piece of building or landscape that you've done that you really like super proud of and that you just love to death?
I think that for myself, a lot of my larger pieces, I find a very hard time selling because I get emotionally attached to them. But the pieces that I'm most proud of, and we'll go back to the Dread Gazebo. The Dread Gazebo, most of the stuff I've been creating over, I don't know, the past 6 to 7 months now have been kind of requests from individuals. And oddball requests. And I love these oddball requests because I had stated in the video before when I was creating the Dread Gazebo, I had no idea what a Dread Gazebo was. And I've been playing forever and a decade. And I just never heard the story of Eric and the Dread Gazebo. I don't know why, but it made sense to me. And then finding the picture that I did of it, I'm like, that's mine. I'm creating that. But I think for the most part, I love my windmill, but stuff that I've had around for a long time, I don't know if I just kind of get emotionally attached to all my pieces. I don't know that.
Yeah, that makes sense completely.
It does. It makes perfect sense since you created them. That we're attached to them. Oh, speaking of which, what is your favorite? I was really curious. What's your favorite like monster to play in Dungeons and Dragons? Like,
okay, so let me introduce Bone Daddy. This is our he's our horror guy. He loves monsters and horror genre stuff. I mean, that's his wheelhouse.
And blood and gore and torture.
Yeah.
But mostly I like monsters.
He does.
So tell me what your favorite monster is.
I think one of my favorite all-time monsters has to be a doppelganger or a form of doppelganger.
Oh, I love
I just think that the way it comes across and the way I don't know, there's something about a doppelganger that just kind of brings things home sometimes, especially if it's in your party and you don't know about it. We all know that, yes, we're going to have some interaction with a monster that, yes, we can readily identify that is a bullet or that is a green dragon or something like that. But when it's one of your own party members, some feelings get hurt sometimes.
Yeah,
especially when you kill the wrong iteration. So.
Oops.
Which I did, which I have done. Not even 7-8 months ago. I personally killed the wrong guy, so I wasn't DMing.
It happened.
So
okay,
with DMing and playing for so long, as Thorne said, we accumulatively we have about 35 years of experience, and we've been playing for a while. And I've noticed that as time has gone on, and of course, for one, we got older and we've matured a little bit, but we kind of get tired of starting a campaign in a tavern. There's the normal bar brawls and things, and even starting with the fade into a ship. Have you noticed with your play style or with your DMing style, have you started to I guess dabble into the more chaotic and crazy things, or is there a home base for you in your DMing?
In a very generalized term, I created this small world called Questing Brook, and it's it's about 150 miles up the coast from Candlekeep, and it's a relatively safe space. It's good. It's just a good working area to get players out of. But that my last 2 campaigns I started, the first one, they actually experienced for about, out of a 3-hour session, probably half that 3-hour session, they were actually in a dream state as much higher level characters. They determined it was probably about 45 to 50 years. I play currently in, is it 1849? Anyway, but they had determined they were about 45 or 50 years beyond, and they had wealth, they had shops, they had goods, they had all these things at their disposal. But it was a glimpse of their future, basically what it was, waking up inside of basically in a cell. My second group, they're all brand new to D&D, and I did start them off, you meet in a tavern.
That's awesome though. I love brand new players. They're so much fun.
Yeah, and it was great because they're all, boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister. They're all really closely knit, and they play off each other, and they bring in these characters they bring in from their life experiences outside. If they're fighting, I'll know. If they were fighting in the car before they got there, I know that how the game is going to be, because they'll be kind of fighting back and forth within the game, and it's quite fun. It's a good experience, and I've seen them over the past couple of months, 3 months maybe, develop as characters, and really, like, they love it. I mean, they would follow me anywhere. They love it.
That's awesome. And right before we get into, we talked in the bonus content about an NPC, and we're going to throw that to you. There's 2 questions that I love to ask, and one is from a player standpoint, and one from a story weaver that I'll save for the end. But as a player, or what kind of tip would you have for a brand new player coming into the game? You know, they have at least enough knowledge to play the game. They've come to your table. What's something that you would advise for them to have the best enjoyable experience?
Well, with all my new players, there's always going to be something said to sitting down with those individuals prior to the game. I don't make it overly complicated for them. I do have a small cheat sheet, but I don't make it overly complicated for them. And I kind of roll that the first few times we're playing. But the main thing I think that I let them know is that don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to be the person that says, well, what do I see in the tavern? Don't take things for granted sometimes, but just open your mind up. And I try to relate those experiences to a place that they would be most familiar with. So if they're over 21 and they go to the local bar on a Friday night with their girlfriend or something like that, what are those experiences that you're having in there? Are you a single individual going into a bar? What would you really ask an individual? Because the fact of the matter is that if you walked up to a bartender in a bar, you're going to ask them for where the restroom is, what drink, what you're having to drink, or maybe some kind of food. Those 3 kind of basic questions. You're not going to ask them, well, I mean, you in game we do, but what's the skinny? What's the news around here? So I kind of have them and give them direction to real life things, and we play off of that. Because a bartender that doesn't know you isn't going to give you his social security card number, date of birth, full name, and the keys to his car. It's just never going to happen. But ask questions. Just keep asking them. I don't mind. In fact, all of my players have my text, my personal email, and they know that they can text me or email me, or not, email me or text me at any time, and I get back to them as quickly as I can with whatever question it is. It doesn't matter what the level of what it is.
That's awesome.
I think that's important. That's something that I do. I just think it's important to keep in contact with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if, with your permission, I'd like to clip that for TikTok, and I'll tag you on that, because that's really good advice. And we kind of started a story weaver tip type thing, so that's getting the players to ask you questions is really important. And I'm actually going to steal something from you just now. That you said that the bartender's not just going to give you their social security number. So we talked about the NPC. Our NPC is going to be that gullible person that you walk up to the bar and say, "Hey, what's your name? What's this? What's your job? You know, give me everything about you." So he's going to be this gullible person, and I'd like for you to pick your choice, either a name or the race/species for the NPC.
The name for let's go with race, because I or species of the NPC is, for me, I really like half ogre or something like that. That battle hardened kind of, I'm done with battling, I own a bar now kind of a guy.
Sure.
Maybe an ex-barbarian, a little bit lower intelligence, but has his wits about him. And I would say a good name for him would probably be Grug Belt Sniffer.
Grug Belt Sniffer. All right, Thorn, give me a quirk for Grug Belt Sniffer.
Okay, so Grug Belt Sniffer has a slight tick. He kind of kicks his eye, and every once in a while when he's talking, when he's making a drink, he just kind of, because he got hit really hard on that side of the head. And there, it's actually, if he's got his hair cut short, you can see the divot where the club actually connected with his skull. But he likes to keep hair over it, but he forgets, so he cuts his hair really short, and you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little tick and a dent in his head.
I love it. Bone Daddy. So we've got this gullible half ogre, ex-barbarian bartender, Grug the Belt Sniffer,
with a dent in his head.
with a dent inside of his head, with a little tick in his eye. Give us some kind of way to introduce the party. Give some kind of scenario where we're, the party walks into the tavern and sees this guy. What's the party doing?
The party's probably ordering drinks, and they and Greg's help creating them for him, and they're it's like a part. You always have that one player in like a party whose like character is like a hot mess sometimes, and it's just like, in the character is just like, I'm not imagining the dent in his head, right? Like, you see the dent in his head, like you're like look, it kind of shines like right there, like it's like pointing it out like very obviously, and that's how they end up interacting with him, because he's just like, it's rude to stare.
I like it. Okay, and just to wrap it up, can you give us some piece of information that he really shouldn't have given the party, but kind of like a la Harry Potter with Hagrid, and shouldn't have said that. What's that secret that he gives us?
While traversing back and forth throughout the patrons in the bar or at the bar, serving them whatever they're serving them, he happens to slide down a mug of ale. And attached to that mug of ale, unbeknownst to the character until they finish it all off, is a note. And that note just happens to give a location or meeting spot. For what? We don't know until they go.
Oops.
I love it. Oops. Yeah. I mean,
wrong thing.
Oh, you weren't looking for this? I'm sorry. Okay. Well, that's great. Well, thank you for helping with an NPC. I mean, that's what we love doing, especially, like Thorn said, we do it for Patreon once a week. We get on and we kind of just do this round robin, just kind of to show story weavers and even players. Really, it's kind of simple to make a player character or a non-player character that it just has, a simple, it's your name, the race, the whatever role they have, and then a quick backstory, and the rest of it you're building in the campaign. It you know, you don't need, you know, I'm a writer as a story weaver, and Thorn likes to shit on me a lot for it because I write just so much. And
I do not at
Yeah.
all.
Oh, I do as well. A lot.
And so I end up, you know, oh, here's my NPC. Here's 4 pages of backstory that it's just for me. You don't have to read it. But, you know, I have this thing. And Thorn's like, well, I flipped a coin and I got this character. So.
No, I write elaborate backstories and do research. When I get into my own my personal PC. So.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's fun for me. I guess I've run out of I started doing audiobooks now because I can't sit down anymore to just read a book like I used to. You know, when Harry Potter was coming out and the Deathly Hallows, you know, book 7 came out, I read that book in 3 days. Now I look at it, I'm like, well, I could probably get a chapter in a day. I think I got enough time for that. Like, I don't know. It's like, man. You sit down, you open the book, and then something happens, and, you know, I have a 6-year-old, so it's like, okay, well, I got to go take care of her, and, you know, it's like, but, and I guess that's where I get my fun is writing the campaigns and writing the player characters instead, and just developing a backstory, and it's always fun, and I'm sure you've had that experience too of just having that one NPC that the group just falls in love with, and, you know, we have one player, Raven, that just adopts the randomest. You don't. It was a throwaway character that I had, and suddenly it's part of the party, and it's
Right.
just the way it goes.
Chaotic character. There's always one.
Yeah.
Player. Yeah,
That's Raven, and she does that in real life too. She adopts people, just the most random people.
Yeah.
We're running out of space. We're running out of closet space for everyone.
Okay, let's close up. Let's ask that last question you got there, Illadine.
Yeah. So the last question is for the story weaver or the dungeon master side of things is, if I'm just starting out, you know, our party, maybe we just wrapped up a session or even a campaign, and that dungeon master says, you know what, I'm going to take a break. Somebody else take over. And you raise your hand and you know, I haven't DM'd before, but I'd like to give it a shot. What is that first thing that you're telling them, you know, hey, this is what I would suggest when you're DMing?
Use the experience from your past play. I really, the more games you can get in, and being a PC and taking those points from different dungeon masters or GMs, if you can get those, you fill up your toolbox quite fast with those things. Don't read the entire Dungeon Master's Guide. You don't need to. Read the entire Player's Handbook, because that's what they're going to be quoting everything out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer a hardbound copy of it. I know a lot of people have it on their laptop or their phone or something like that. I always suggest get a hardbound copy of the Player's Handbook, and during your session 0, make sure that you're taking a look at if you have any spellcasters or somebody with weird abilities or something that you don't quite understand it, talk through them with it, and make those notes for you in in the sideboard of the Player's Handbook or on a scratch piece of paper, and don't be afraid to fail. Especially if you're brand new. Nobody knows everything. I don't know everything, but the ability to improvise on the fly is something that will only come with time. We are not all Matt Mercer. We will never be Matt Mercer. But the fact of the matter is that there are things from certain individuals that I've taken and put it in my toolbox. Here's my toolbox. Call me anytime you need help.
Right. And I love that you said that, especially because, you know, the Matt Mercer effect is a very real thing in our community. And by more content creators saying, you know, we're not all Matt Mercer, you know, it's good to hear over and over again, because if you're listening as an audience member, you know, Matt Mercer is paid to be Matt Mercer. You know, everyone else who's DMing, we have 1, maybe 2 jobs. You know, this is our hobby. Whereas Matt Mercer, right, this is his life. This is where he makes his money, and so he has to know, you know, the DMG and the Player's Handbook, you know, pretty much to the letter. But one thing that people don't understand and forget about with Matt Mercer is that, especially now with Critical Role as big as it is, they've got a team of rules lawyers behind Matt Mercer.
Yep.
That Matt Mercer will say, hey, I need to know this. They go to a commercial break, and then they know all of a sudden, there's 4 guys researching really fast and can tell Matt, very quickly. Whereas us, we're like, okay, hold on, let me pause the game for a second. I have to go to, whatever, page 36 for the sorcerers, and look at your spells, because I just can't remember everything. And it's good that I like hearing you say that. It's a good thing to remember. And the very last question before I give it to Bone Daddy and Thorn to see if they have anything, is when we're playing the game and you're gonna play, let's say, I'm looking up at my books here, the Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Okay.
When we're playing that module, are you word to word, this is the module, this is all that's going to happen, or do you kind of stray away? Okay, good. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that there are certain, even, I utilize a lot of the information that's out there. And starting off playing Dungeons and Dragons, we had, there were people creating kind of their own kind of things. I probably created a few of my own kind of little dungeons and things like that, but we all just sucked up anything TSR was putting out. And when a new module was released, you could bet that if we had finished a module, that was the next one we were playing. But as time has gone by, what I find myself utilizing them for is I take the overall premise and principle, and I also modify it to our needs. And depending on what that is, it doesn't matter what, it could be anything, Tomb of Horrors, it could be anything, adventure to Great Barrier Peaks or something like that. It could be anything, but you modify it, and I utilize the core aspect of that and kind of try to stay true to that. But there's always going to be room for me to kind of fudge the rules a little bit.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't follow any module to the letter. I can't. I don't have that much patience. I like to get into my own creativity, and I fly off the hip for almost everything I do. So it's going to be, rolling as it goes. I don't really have another question. What I would like you to do, though, is just tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can find your social medias and your artwork. I really want them to know.
Yeah, for right now, I've had keep in mind, and I think I've mentioned this before to many people, is that I didn't have any kind of a social media footprint until October of 2022, so 3 or 4 months ago. I did not, I had a Facebook, and I had, a YouTube, so I could go onto YouTube and watch things. But I wasn't posting or doing anything like that. And it was only through the prompting of my players and friends and individuals to say, hey, you got to get your stuff out there and let people like it. And I said, well, I build stuff for different individuals. I stream on, it's Drunkenblade 13, as I'm streaming on Twitch. And then YouTube, that's more Drunkenblade. And then the 8th of December 2022, and technically it was really the 22nd, was the first time I think I posted anything onto TikTok. And I found my home. That was the one thing that was really hard for me to do, being new into the social media kind of aspect. And I'm older, than most of those people that kind of start those things. And I wasn't really getting into it, and I wasn't having very many followers and things like that. And I'm just kind of putting things out there for fun. Once I discovered TikTok and the community within TikTok, that's my primary place where I post everything now. But yeah, I haven't been on. I haven't even been on 2 months yet. So the response from them has really excited me. to the point where I'm like actively creating even more and more outrageous things that are sitting on my table, you know, and to reveal to the world, just because it's fun. Yeah, my main is always, I think right now is going to be TikTok, or for quite some time. Just had a good reaction. I love the audience there.
Nice. That's awesome. We're slowly finding a home in TikTok as well, so we're slowly getting there eventually.
Very slowly.
Well, I just thought, I mean, being as old as I am, I just thought TikTok, I mean, my experience with TikTok was people doing dances and things like that, and funny skits and things. I didn't know that there was a community, and the community that is there. I didn't know that community existed. And when I posted something, I think it was, like I said, the 22nd of December, I mean, I woke up to the biggest Christmas gift I could ever wake up to, and literally was like, you know, I was a little teary-eyed, you know, and with just within a, you know, I don't look at, you know, how many followers I have. That the only thing I looked at for followers was that I knew that I could go live once I got to 1,000 followers, and as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my God, I've got another way to show this stuff and just see what other people want to do and create.
That's awesome. And we're glad that you're on TikTok, because we found you, and we're glad we're able to watch your videos. They bring me tons of joy to watch. So.
Well, I'm flooding stuff out next week. So.
I actually don't have another question. But although I did have earlier, I had a question about like terrain building,
Yes.
where if somebody was looking to pick up terrain building, where's a good place for them to start?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the very last part.
Where's a good place for them to start? Like if they wanted to start building their own terrain, where's a good place for them to start?
As far as picking up ideas and stuff like that, I think because of the length of videos, YouTube is a great place to look. I do find myself in the middle of the road with YouTube, only because for individuals that are just starting out building terrain, the biggest difficulty they're going to have with a lot of the videos on there is that they don't have tens of thousands of dollars, or $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 worth of this fancy equipment, and neither do I. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to show people, is that you don't have to have all this fancy CAD equipment and printers and all this stuff to create. What you create is art within itself, no matter what it looks like. So if all you're putting down is a cardboard box or an empty milk crate that you painted brown, that's awesome, because that's exactly where I started. And I try to give the tips and tricks to get you to the next level with basic things that you can find within your house or from the Dollar Tree. Yeah, I pick up things that are more expensive. I was given a gift of a Proxxon cutter machine, which changed my life. But the fact of the matter is that I've achieved most of everything that I do just with my two hands, and just a willingness to just try. And
That's awesome.
and just have fun with it. You don't need a ton of money to build terrain. You just don't. It's just time consuming. And that's what the people, I think, really, you know, everybody's printing everything now. Everything is 3D printed.
Mhm.
And there's nothing like having an original piece of art. And that's, I think, everything I do is an original piece of art. So,
Yeah. And that is the best way I could ever think of to wrap up an episode for us. So again, I appreciate you for coming on. We all do. And for the listeners out there, make sure that you go check out those links for more Drunkenblade. We will have in the description list all of your links so that people can find you there. And with that, guys, check your dungeons, because this dungeon is occupied. What's up, Weavers of the Realm? As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, click that like button and subscribe or follow us on your chosen platforms. It goes a long way to help us grow. And if you liked the intro music that we just used, it was made with the help of The Hobby Hub on YouTube and Saturn Imaging Production Company. Also, if you want exclusive content like NPC of the Week, Discord access, and behind the scenes, join our Patreon at patreon.com/thisdungeonisoccupiedpodcast. And of course, the link to our merch store, social medias, and all the other podcast platforms are available on our link tree in the show notes. Good luck in your games, steal everything, and have fun.